Hello friends and welcome back to Chess with Konstantin. Today I'm going to be interrupting our regularly scheduled program to teach you how not to lose at chess in the first 8 moves. A lot of beginners, when they first start out, make the mistake of spending almost all their time studying openings. And if you want to really improve and become a great chess player, that's not the way to go. Instead, the way to go, if you want to improve, is to study endgames and tactics, chess combinations. As one famous player said, before I'm 2300, my first name is tactics, my middle name is tactics, and my last name is tactics. But there is an opening that I can teach you that will make you feel at ease playing opponents who spend all their time studying openings. Basically, it's the same or similar 7 to 8 moves that you can play regardless of the color you're playing, either black or white. The advantage of that is, while that opening makes you objectively worse. Oh my goodness, Saint Pierre and Miquelon. I've never even heard of that country before. Okay, so the opening makes you objectively worse, but only a little bit worse. And the advantage is that you can, you can play these moves, and once you get after your opponent, you get out of the opening stages. You can just play chess and play logical moves, common sense moves, and you'll be quite good. So we have d4 and c4. So my idea with g6 is to build a house for my king. So our king is homeless out there in the middle. So we are going to play g6, and we are going to put the bishop on the long diagonal. And then after this, usually people will play knight to f6. That's objectively the best move, but that's not the way I want to play. I want to have another little house, I guess a side structure for the in-laws, with pawn to e6. And that is the idea behind this opening, called the universal attack, or really the Konstantin attack, if you want to get technical, because I've spent years developing theory for this, so you don't have to worry about it. So the idea, as I've said, behind this opening is that your king, already on move 5, notice your king is quite safe. And now black will try to push these pawns to d5 and c5, maybe put the knight on c6, and we will just play normal chess, and we won't have to worry about any kind of theory. And if white is not careful, white can even be worse here. So let's see what happens. So our opponent is about 2200, roughly a master level opponent. And the opponent is making common sense moves, but we will play pawn to c5 now. And our idea is to put the knight on d7 or c6, usually c6. And if this captures, then we will take with the pawn. And this is the idea, simply to put the knight on c6, and then the queen can go to c7 or a5. Bishop will go to d7 usually, and just playing waiting moves. And this knight can very often go to f5, attacking the center, and we can start organizing some kind of attacks in the center. So this is fine to take either with the knight or the pawn in this case. And also it's possible to capture this pawn here. And actually very often if white doesn't capture this pawn, then actually it's better to take here first. Because, for example, you can capture, knight takes and push. But you don't have to think too much. I mean, actually even just recapturing the pawn is perfectly fine here, giving up this pawn. and then we can play, for example, knight to a6, attacking the c5 pawn. And then if he doesn't defend this pawn, then the knight will capture and be on a very active square. And if white plays an awkward move like bishop to e3, which is indeed what white played, that's actually a mistake, because then the bishop can be vulnerable to these kinds of tactics. So we can kind of evaluate maybe knight to f5, attacking the bishop and preparing the pawn push. And after knight f5, if white captures this pawn, then we can recapture after knight takes bishop, and the bishop takes b2. So this seems like an interesting idea. And I would note that after bishop takes b2, this pawn is still under attack by our knight here. So indeed, white takes, and then we have knight takes e3, knight takes e3. And now we can actually choose which pawn to take. Do we want to take the c5 pawn, or do we want to take the b2 pawn? It should be fine to take the b2 pawn. Perfectly fine. And after this, the bishop can come back. We can trade queens. We could play bishop a3. Maybe we'll play bishop a3, double attack on this c5 pawn. You don't need to overthink things. Just kind of relax. I mean, objectively, white is better here, but who cares, right? We are playing a rapid game, and our king is safe. Almost all our pieces are developed. Very soon we'll develop this bishop somewhere. We are threatening to put our knight on an active square. So black is doing okay here. I mean, there's no catastrophe. This is a very playable game, which, you know, is exactly what I wanted to achieve. So it's fine to just capture this pawn. Now we can play like this pawn structure. Where to put the queen? Oh, let's trade queens. Let's trade queens. When your opponent is ahead in development, it's always a good idea to trade queens to remove some steam from their attack, and it will be more difficult for the opponent to attack without their queen. And here we already can capture this knight, and after pawn takes, then of course queen will capture with check. This breaks up the opponent's pawn structure on the queen side and wins back a pawn. Also making an isolated pawn target here. It's quite a good move. And our threat will be to develop the bishop on an active square. So actually bishop e6 is also a good move, attacking the queen right away. And because with the idea that after the queen moves, maybe we could capture this this pawn. And that's another way to go. And another move to look at here is maybe b5. It sacrifices another pawn, but after b5 and, for example, rook takes b5, we can go ahead and capture this again, but have just more squares for our own pieces. So let's go ahead and take That seems like a good idea. And play bishop e6, attacking the opponent's queen, setting up an extra attack on this a2 pawn. And just put the knight on an active square. Now we'll play like this rook somewhere, rook d8, rook c8. You have to watch out though. This is a threatened checkmate. So like, if white played knight to g5 here, which he does. I mean, obviously h6 cannot be played because that's just queen takes, so I have to play h5 here, and now he can play g4 okay, he didn't. He just went for that. So I took with the pawn. Usually you wouldn't want to take with the pawn because it creates a backward pawn here, but I took with the pawn to open up my rook here. And already there are some ideas with the rook sacrifice on f3. So this is at least a draw now. So I can just check back and forth, and this is a draw. And I don't know if there's anything better than a draw here, but I don't think so. I think we could try to get a draw. But also this knight move is interesting because we have threats, blocks the rook. If rook takes knight, then queen takes back, and we recapture the exchange. And if he doesn't capture the knight, then we have some attacking chances here. All right, so obviously you don't want to move your king. That gives away the tempo. So, or the momentum, I should say. It gives away the momentum. So maybe we'll give a check. Now, if here, then we have this check, or that check. And actually, if here, then he will be mated. Potentially, he'll have to give up a queen. If king here, then I guess we just keep giving checks. And king has to be here. Yeah, I don't really see anything better than a draw here. You don't want to give this check because he can block with the queen. But this check is probably just a draw. And yeah, I don't really see anything better. Like after king h7, he has tempo suddenly. Oh, I'm sorry. After king h7, he can take this check, and I'll be mated. So I think this is just. I think I just have to take the draw here. But anyway, look, we drew against the 2200. That is pretty good for a very crappy opening that you can play from now all the way until you are 2200 yourself. So let's do another game, and I will demonstrate kind of the power of this opening, hopefully as white pieces. So we have pawn to g3, and this opening is actually much better as white. And then just bishop g2, e3, knight e2, castle, and now d5, I mean d4, and pawn takes. So this is, as you can see, white is doing quite well here. So already on move 7, almost all our pieces are developed. We need to develop our knight and bishop, but our dark squared bishop is having access to plenty of space. So this is great. So I would say, if I were to evaluate this position, that both sides here are equal. I would say that they are equal. So what to do here? Let me think for a few minutes and come up with a good plan that we can all follow. So, typically a theme of this opening would be to sacrifice a pawn here, but that's only when we have a closed center, and the point of the pawn sacrifice is to open up the center. But here maybe white would like to put his bishop on e3, and you don't want to allow your opponent to play moves like knight to g4 and capture this bishop. So maybe pawn to h3. What it accomplishes is it blocks this g4 square for the opponent's knight. And in the next move, we can play bishop e3 and then figure out if you want to push c4 or if you want to put the knight on c3. So this is fine. We could still try to go for the pawn sacrifice with c4, but in that case we'll have to have a plan to recapture. So let's go ahead and sack this pawn. So never, and I repeat, never trade a bishop for a knight early in the game. So this was a horrible move. My opponent developed a bishop and made an active, strong bishop and traded it for a piece that I have yet to develop. That was so bad. Please don't do this. Please don't. It was the worst move in the world. The point of developing pieces is to gain time, and he basically threw away 2 moves by trading a piece that he spent a move developing for a piece that I haven't touched. Let's sack another pawn. Now if he takes, then I'll just take with the rook and I'll have an active rook. One pawn is not enough, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to give away another pawn. Yeah, just takes. Now my queen can go to b1 and we can double up on this if that's what I feel like doing. Okay, so that move kind of defends b7, but queen to b1, and now we have a double attack now on this pawn. And so he has to think, how do you defend this? So he could play rook b8, pawn to b6, but that runs into this problem. And pawn to b6 is indeed played. So let's activate our other rook. Well, let's put it somewhere nice. Let's maybe rook to c1. Now we have a double attack on this knight, and there is a pin on the rook as well. Okay, logical move, protecting the knight. But now we can do a triple attack on the knight, and then knight to a5 is pretty much forced at that point. After which we could, of course, trade pieces, but well, we can set up something called the Alekhine's gun now with queen to b2, but that just runs into rook takes rook, and probably knight takes rook, which is not bad. We are bleeding our momentum a little bit, but my idea is that I think in the end game, two bishops will be better than his one bishop if I can avoid the bishop trade. It was better to take with the queen here, because now we have these issues. But you know, that's okay. Now knight to c4 is pretty strong for black now. But you can kind of see, I mean, we got out of the opening, we're 20 moves deep here, and maybe we are having a worse game, but it's a worse game against a fairly strong player. And we still have some good chances. So you don't want to trade this bishop under any circumstances, because you want to keep the pair of bishops. So I do recommend that opening, because I guarantee you that for most of you, your opponents will not be playing moves that are this strong. So now knight to h5 is probably a good plan for black. I'm actually not sure what I'll do after knight h5. Because I mean, after bishop g5, he can just attack. Oh, he played a suboptimal move here. Now maybe we'll put the bishop here. No. Now there's no more knight h5, and if the knight moves, then we can trade bishops, I suppose. You don't want to trade this bishop for knight under any circumstances, and actually you want to avoid piece trades altogether until we have some kind of attacks going. Okay, so maybe do some sneaky moves with the rook double up here. Maybe I can flag this guy. I mean, maybe I'm not playing chess to the best of my optimal ability, but at least I can play faster, right? And who needs to be good when you have speed, right? You don't really need to be good if you have speed on your side. Now let's push this. So this is the idea of doubling up now after, if pawn takes, then we capture the knight and then capture the pawn. If knight takes, then we trade the bishops, then we capture the knight. And we have some pretty good attacks going, at least. So the position is no longer completely lost. Now it's only a little bit lost. So black is still better, but at least white has an active bishop and some good chances. So now, another rule of thumb for you guys is actually queen and knight are better than queen and bishop. But I want to keep my bishop for some reason. I'm sentimentally attached to it. So other than knight takes, actually bishop takes was the other candidate move. And here we can just play queen takes pawn, but that will lead to a queen trade, and we don't want to trade queens when we are still behind in material. So we are still a pawn down, and we want to avoid simplifying the position until we can be sure that we can have some chances in the endgame. So let's check. He can play f6, or he can move back. If moves back, now there's a pin here, and actually this loses the game because this is a blunder. Okay, guys, can you figure out? I'll give you 10 seconds. Can you figure out why the move knight to king to g8 was a blunder? So I'll tell you after we hit 4 minutes 10 seconds. Okay, guys, if you found the move, congratulations. It's actually bishop takes f7 check, after which correct, after which the opponent can resign on account of after king takes bishop, then the queen is hanging, and this is just completely lost now for black. Well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation about how not to lose the game immediately against a strong opponent. And notice the moves I played. So I built the house for the king with pawn to g3, and bishop g2, e3, knight to e2, and castle. If you played these same 5 moves for white or for black, most of the time, yes, you will be slightly worse, but you won't be losing, and you will not lose the game in the opening stages. And then you can look for pawn breaks with d4 or c4. Very often it's fine to even sacrifice a pawn, which is what I did, as you could see with c4. And then, you know, put your pieces on active squares, knight to c3 or to d2. The queen can go out to b3 or a4, and you know, almost against anything your opponent plays, you'll have a good game. So even if you're playing a master level opponent, this is a fine opening system to use. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this lesson will help you not to lose the game immediately against strong opponents. And I'll see you next time. Konstantin out.